A married couple, April and Frank, seem to be quite an ordinary family living in an American suburb in the 50s.
April dreams of becoming an actress, but her hopes are gradually dashed, which becomes evident during the production of a play in which she participates. After an unsuccessful performance, where April realizes that she has not succeeded in her acting career, her and Frank have their first serious fight.
Frank, in turn, is also unhappy with his life.
He works a boring, monotonous job at a company that sells office equipment and feels that his career has hit a dead end. Frank tries to convince himself that his life has meaning. April and Frank are immersed in the routine of life in the suburbs. Their home is on a quiet street surrounded by manicured lawns, but within this outwardly perfect world lie deep conflicts and frustrations. On the surface, they appear to be a model family, but with each passing day, the gap between them becomes more and more apparent. April sees her dreams die and realizes that she and Frank are gradually losing each other. They both feel a sense of emptiness and dissatisfaction. One night after another stressful day, April offers an unexpected solution. She suggests that Frank drop everything and go to Paris, where they could start their lives over. April thinks they could live a freer and happier life, free from the routine and ordinariness of the American dream. In Paris, she sees an opportunity for Frank to do something he is truly interested in, and she could work as a secretary, providing for the family while Frank decides what he wants to do. This idea unexpectedly inspires Frank. He begins to dream of a new life and imagines how they can escape their dissatisfaction and start with a clean slate. For the first time in a long time, they feel like they have a future that is different from their current one. Amidst these plans, Frank begins to behave differently at his job. He feels that his days at the office are numbered, and this gives him confidence.
He even has an affair on the side with a young secretary named Maureen.
Their relationship is superficial and lacks depth, which further emphasizes his attempts to escape the real problems in his family. Meanwhile, April is actively preparing to move to Paris. She tells neighbors and friends about their plans, including married couple Helen and Millie. However, not everyone around them understands or approves of this decision.
Some believe their plans are a delusional dream that will never come true.
But April continues to believe in her decision and sees Paris as a way out of the impasse. However, the situation begins to change when Frank is offered a promotion at work. His superiors begin to appreciate him and offer him a higher position, which makes Frank think that maybe his current life isn't so bad after all. On the one hand, he still feels dissatisfied with his life, but on the other hand, the promotion promises stability and financial security. When Frank tells April about the offer, she feels her dreams crumbling again. Her frustration grows when she realizes that Frank is no longer burning with desire to go to Paris. She begins to realize that their lives are once again returning to the same routine they were so eager to escape from. This leads to another quarrel and disagreement between them. Frank, on the one hand, tries to convince himself that a promotion at work is a good opportunity, but he also realizes that this is not what he really wants. One of the turning points in the film is when he meets John Gibbings, the son of their neighbors, who has recently been released from a psychiatric hospital. John is a man who tells the truth straight to his face, not caring about social norms. He instantly notices the tension between April and Frank and comments on their decision to go to Paris. He says that only crazy people would take such a step, which strangely pleases April but annoys Frank.
Meanwhile, April discovers that she is pregnant again. This discovery leaves her distraught. She realizes that the pregnancy could be an obstacle to their move to Paris, but at the same time, she is not ready to give up her dream. April considers terminating the pregnancy, which becomes another point of tension between her and Frank. Frank is adamantly against it, and this leads to one of the most emotional conflicts between them. Frank begins to become increasingly doubtful that they will actually be able to go to Paris. He sees their plans crumbling before his eyes, and this leads to his inner crisis. One day he openly tells April that they cannot go to Paris because she is pregnant and that they must stay in America for the sake of the baby's future. April in turn sees his words as a betrayal and a rejection of their overall plan. April makes the decision to have an abortion secretly from Frank, hoping that this will allow her to regain control of her life. She spends the day all alone, gathering her thoughts. In her eyes, Frank has become a symbol of all her failures and unfulfilled hopes, which leads her to her final determination. However, her attempt to terminate the pregnancy ends tragically. April begins to lose a lot of blood and her condition deteriorates rapidly. Frank returns home and seeing her condition, is horrified to realize what has happened.
He calls an ambulance, but April is already unconscious and is taken to the hospital.
Eventually, April dies, leaving Frank alone with a ruined life and an unrelenting sense of guilt. Frank tries to cope with the loss. He leaves the house they lived in and moves to the city, trying to forget his past. Their neighbors discuss what happened, but even they cannot fully understand what exactly happened between April and Frank. Life goes on, but everyone involved in the story is left with a deep wound on their souls. Frank is left with a feeling of emptiness and the realization that he and April could not find the way to happiness. Their dreams of a new life in Paris, of freedom and new opportunities, remain unfulfilled.